He thought he built a family, but one secret shattered everything. Would you have stayed or walked away? I always believed that marriage was built on trust. For 5 years, I thought my wife and I had that foundation, strong, unshakable, and honest. I was the kind of husband who never questioned her late nights at work, her sudden business meetings, or even her weekend work trips. I trusted her completely, because that's what love is supposed to be, right? But something shifted the moment those business trips started becoming more frequent. At first, it was once every couple of months, then every few weeks, until it became a regular excuse that she almost wore like a badge of honor. She claimed it was all part of her growing career in marketing, that her company needed her expertise. And I didn't want to be the insecure husband who held his wife back. Yet, every time she returned from those trips, she wasn't the same woman who had left. She came back colder, distant, like she had left a part of herself behind, or maybe shared it with someone else. I told myself I was overthinking. I convinced myself this was stress, exhaustion, maybe just the toll of traveling. But deep down, I felt the first crack in our marriage forming, one that I couldn't quite put into words, but one I couldn't ignore either. The real shock came one weekend when my mom invited us over for dinner. She was always the type to pry a little too much into my relationships, and I thought she'd calm down once she met my girlfriend. But instead, she dropped a bombshell that left me frozen at the table. She casually mentioned that she had run into someone who knew my girlfriend from years back, and according to them, she already had kids from a previous relationship. I almost choked on my food. Kids? She never once told me she had children. I laughed nervously, thinking maybe my mom was mistaken, but I saw the way my girlfriend stiffened in her seat. She didn't deny it. She just stared at her plate, completely silent. Later that night, after we got home, I pressed her about it. That's when the truth came out. She admitted she had 2 kids, a boy and a girl, who lived with her ex. She said she didn't tell me earlier because she was scared it would scare me away. She insisted she was planning to bring it up when the time was right. But here's the kicker. After all that confession, she looked me dead in the eyes and asked me if I would be willing to step up and help raise them. I was stunned. I didn't even know these kids existed 5 minutes ago, and now she was asking me to consider being their father figure? The silence that followed her confession felt like it stretched for hours, even though it was only a few seconds. My mind was racing, my chest tight. It wasn't just about the fact that she had kids, it was about the deliberate choice to hide something so massive from me for months. I kept replaying every single late-night conversation in my head. All those evenings when she talked about her stress at work, or when she said she was too tired to go out. And now I realized she might have been covering up parenting responsibilities. Suddenly, all of it made a cruel kind of sense that I thought back to the plans we'd made, trips we talked about taking, moving in together eventually, maybe even getting a dog. All that time, she already had 2 children, 2 little humans depending on her. And now she was dropping it on me like a casual footnote, as if it were no bigger deal than admitting she didn't like pineapple on pizza, but it didn't stop there. Once she saw I was shocked, she leaned in and started painting this whole future scenario. She said she had been waiting for the right moment to tell me because she wanted to be sure I was serious about her. She explained that her ex was unreliable and hardly around, so the kids were bouncing back and forth, and she wanted stability for them. She looked me dead in the eye and said she thought I could be the one to provide it. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. She wasn't just confessing about her kids. She was laying out an entire plan where I was supposed to step in as their father figure. She talked about us living together soon, me helping them with homework, driving them to school, reading them bedtime stories. It wasn't a suggestion. It was presented as if it was the natural next step for us. Meanwhile, I was still trying to process the first bombshell. I hadn't even wrapped my head around the fact that she had kids at all, and now she was acting like I had already silently agreed to raise them. My thoughts were spinning. How could she keep this from me? How could she think I would just accept this without question? But what cut the deepest was the way she brushed off the secrecy. She said, almost flippantly, that I shouldn't overreact. That people keep things private until they're sure a relationship is serious. But this wasn't a small omission. This wasn't her hiding an embarrassing tattoo or a weird hobby. This was life-altering information. Children, a responsibility that changes the entire course of someone's future. And just when I thought the shock couldn't get any worse, she slipped up. In the middle of her rushed explanation, She admitted something that made the ground beneath me disappear. One of the kids wasn't even biologically hers. When she let those words slip, one of them isn't even mine. I swear my entire body went cold. For a moment, I honestly thought I had misheard her. My ears were ringing, my vision blurry, like I had just been punched in the face that I forced myself to stay still, but inside I was spiraling. If one of the kids wasn't even hers, then whose child was it? Why was she raising a child that didn't belong to her? And more importantly, why was she expecting me, a man she had only been dating for a handful of months, to step into a father role for a kid who wasn't even biologically connected to her? She quickly tried to cover it up, backpedaling with a shaky laugh, saying something like, "Well, technically, not mine, but it's complicated." But the damage was already done. That phrase, "not mine," kept echoing in my head. It shattered what little trust one had left, as she rambled on. I pieced together fragments of the story. Apparently, her ex had fathered a child with another woman during their rocky relationship, and when that woman disappeared from the picture, my girlfriend stepped up to raise the baby as her own. So here she was, asking me not only to accept the two kids she had hidden from me, but also to take responsibility for a child who wasn't even biologically hers. The sheer weight of it all was suffocating. I hadn't agreed to any of this. I hadn't even been given the choice. From the very beginning, she had built our relationship on a foundation of half-truths and omissions. And now she expected me to shoulder a role that could redefine my entire future. What broke me wasn't just the secrecy, though. It was the entitlement. She looked at me with this desperate, almost pleading expression, but underneath it was an assumption, an expectation, that because I cared about her, I would automatically take on everything else. As if loving her meant I was obligated to sacrifice my freedom, my plans, and my future. And the worst part? I could already feel the trap closing in. If I said yes, I would be locked into a life I never signed up for. But if I said no, I would be painted as heartless, the guy who abandoned not just a woman, but her children. Children who didn't ask to be in this mess that I sat there in silence, staring at her, realizing that the woman I thought I knew didn't exist. She wasn't the carefree, independent, light-hearted partner I had fallen for. She was someone who had carefully hidden an entire life from me until she thought I was too deep in to walk away. But now, with this revelation about a child who wasn't even hers, I felt the last threads of trust snapping one by one. I couldn't sleep that night. Her words haunted me like a ghost. One of them isn't even mine. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing in circles. Every scenario played out in my head, each one worse than the last. Part of me felt this crushing guilt. None of this was the children's fault. They didn't ask to be born into chaos, lies, and a broken family dynamic. They were innocent, yet somehow, I was being dragged into a mess that had nothing to do with me. And deep down, I hated myself for even questioning whether I should just walk away. Because walking away didn't mean leaving her, it meant leaving them. Kids who had already been abandoned once. But the other part of me, the louder, angrier part, couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. She had stolen my choice. From the very start, she looked me in the eye and pretended like her world was simple. She laughed at my jokes, kissed me goodnight, talked about weekend trips and holidays, all while hiding the biggest, most life-altering truth about who she really was. And then, when she finally revealed it, it wasn't out of honesty. It wasn't out of respect. It was because she had no other option. I felt trapped, like she had been slowly tightening a rope around my neck, waiting until I was too deep in to notice I couldn't breathe. The anger burned hotter every time I thought about it. I had my own dreams, building a career, traveling, maybe someday having children of my own when I was ready. Not inheriting someone else's broken promises, someone else's children, and someone else's baggage. But the worst part? She didn't even seem to see the problem. In her mind, love meant sacrifice. If I loved her, I would simply accept this reality without hesitation. But love isn't blind devotion. Love isn't manipulation. By sunrise, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just about kids or responsibility. This was about trust, honesty, and respect. Three things she had never given me. And as much as it tore me apart to admit it, I realized I couldn't stay. But the question clawed at me relentlessly. If I walked away now, would I be doing the right thing for myself? Or would I forever be the villain in the story of three children who had already lost too much? The next evening, I decided I couldn't carry the weight of this secret storm alone anymore. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just dropped a bomb that shattered the foundation of our relationship. I stood there for a long time, just watching her. The kids were asleep in their rooms. The house was quiet, but inside me there was a thunderstorm raging. My heart was pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Finally, I broke the silence. I told her we needed to talk. Not tomorrow, not later, but right now. She looked at me with those tired eyes, as if she already knew what was coming, but I laid it out. Every ounce of frustration, betrayal, and confusion spilling out like poison I'd been holding in for too long. I told her that I wasn't just some safety net she could fall back on. I told her that keeping something this big from me wasn't love, it was manipulation. Her expression shifted, a mix of shame and defiance. She tried to argue that she hadn't lied. She just hadn't told me everything. As if omission wasn't betrayal. As if waiting until I was too emotionally invested somehow made it better. The more she spoke, the more I realized she wasn't apologizing. She was justifying. Every word was another twist of the knife. She said things like, "You love me, right? Then you'll understand." Or, "You knew I came with responsibility. What's the difference if it's 2 kids or 3? But it wasn't about the number. It was about choice. She had stolen mine that I could feel the air in the room grow heavier with each passing second. My hands shook as I told her that love can't exist without trust, and that trust between us was broken beyond repair. That's when her mask slipped. Her voice rose, her words sharpened. She accused me of being selfish, of not caring about her or the children. She said I was throwing away something real over details. Details. That's what she called it. A hidden child. A rewritten past. Years of silence. Just details. In that moment, I realized I wasn't just fighting for the truth. I was fighting for my sanity, for my freedom, for my future. That I told her flatly that I couldn't stay in this relationship. Not like this. Not when everything between us had been built on a lie. Her face crumbled, and for the first time, she looked afraid, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I had finally made my choice. The second those words left my mouth, "I can't stay in this relationship," the entire atmosphere in the room shifted. It was as if a bomb had gone off, but only she and I were close enough to feel the blast. Her face twisted from shock to disbelief, then quickly to anger. Tears welled up, but her voice was sharp, desperate. She accused me of betraying her, of abandoning her when she needed me most. She said I was no better than all the men who had walked out on her before, and for a moment, that cut deep, because I did love her. I loved the kids too, and she knew it. That was the cruelest part. She was using my own love as a weapon against me. She suddenly dropped to the floor, kneeling, grabbing at my hands like a drowning person clinging to driftwood. Her voice cracked as she begged me to reconsider. She promised she'd explain everything, that she'd tell me every secret, every hidden truth if that's what it took. But it was too late. The damage was already done. That I told her point blank that love built on lies is a house of cards. And right now, I was standing in the wreckage. That's when she tried a different tactic. She brought the kids into it. She said they'd be devastated if I left, that I was the closest thing they had to a father. She told me that walking away wouldn't just break her, it would break them too. And damn it, she knew exactly how to hit me where it hurt. The thought of those kids crying, confused, wondering why I wasn't around anymore, it tore me apart. I could feel my resolve wavering, and she saw it too. Her tears turned into a plea so raw, so manipulative, that even now I can't shake it from my memory. She told me that if I left, I'd be proving that no man could ever love her and her kids. That I'd just be another reason for them to believe people always walk away. It was a low blow. A cruel twist of guilt. And for a split second, I almost believed her, but then it hit me. This wasn't love anymore. This was emotional blackmail. And if I gave in now, I'd be trapped in a cycle of lies, guilt, and manipulation for the rest of my life. I stood my ground. My voice shook, but I told her firmly, "This isn't about the kids. This is about you not trusting me enough to give me the truth from the start. And if you could lie about something this big, what else haven't you told me?" She froze. No words, just silence. And in that silence, I had my answer. The silence didn't last long. It shattered like glass when her face twisted, her voice rising into a scream that echoed through the walls. She accused me of being cruel, of never loving her, of using her and her children just to walk away when things got difficult. It was like watching a storm roll in. The tears dried up, replaced with pure rage. She stood tall again, pointing at me like I was the villain in this story. She said I was selfish, heartless, that I was throwing away something people would kill to have. Then came the bombshell. She shouted that I owed her, that after everything she'd let me into, after letting me into her kids' lives, I had no right to just walk out. She spat out that I was nothing without her, that no one else would ever accept me the way she did. Her words hit like knives, but I could see it for what it was. Desperation dressed as anger. And then, she slipped. In her rage, she revealed something she never intended to say out loud. She blurted that the reason she hadn't told me the truth about the child wasn't fear of losing me. It was fear that I'd expose her. She admitted she had kept it secret because she'd built her entire image of being the perfect, strong single mom who found love again. And if I knew, if anyone knew, that illusion would shatter. That was it. The mask came off that it was never about love. It was about control, about her pride, about making sure she didn't look weak in front of anyone else. And in that moment, I realized I hadn't just been betrayed. I had been played. Every tender smile, every late-night reassurance, every promise of forever was built on her fear of being exposed, not on trust in me. Her anger turned into something darker. She told me if I walked away, she'd make sure the kids hated me, that she'd twist the story so they'd believe I abandoned them. She threatened to tell everyone that I was the problem, that I was unstable, that I couldn't handle a real relationship, that it was like staring at a stranger. The woman I thought I loved was gone, replaced by someone I didn't even recognize. And as her voice grew louder, I felt something inside me grow quieter. It was the final piece falling into place, the confirmation I needed that leaving wasn't just the right choice. It was the only choice that I didn't shout back. I didn't argue. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt a strange kind of clarity. Her words, her threats, her rage, they weren't pulling me in anymore. They were pushing me out. I looked around the apartment, at the framed pictures of us smiling on vacations, at the kids' toys scattered across the living room, at the notes she used to leave on the fridge. It all felt fake now, like props in a play I didn't even know I was part of. With shaking hands, I went to the bedroom. I pulled out a bag from under the bed and began to pack. Each shirt folded was like another goodbye. Each pair of socks stuffed into the bag felt like a step further away from the life I thought I was building. Behind me, her voice didn't stop. She hurled insults, accusations, begged me 1 second, cursed me the next. But her words sounded far away, like they were coming from another room. My heart was pounding too loud in my chest for me to care. I paused when I saw the photograph of us with the kids at the park. All of us laughing, her arms around me, their faces lit up. For a split second, guilt stabbed me. Was I really about to walk away from children who had nothing to do with this mess? But then I remembered her confession. The lies. The manipulation. The way she twisted everything to make herself the victim. And I realized staying wouldn't save the kids. It would only destroy me. And in the long run, it would hurt them too, because they'd grow up seeing love as control, dishonesty, and fear. When I zipped the bag shut, it sounded like a door slamming. Final. Irreversible. I walked to the door. My legs felt like lead, but I kept moving. She stood in the hallway, blocking me one last time, eyes wild, hair disheveled, screaming that I was ruining everything, that I'd regret this, that I'd come crawling back. But for once, I didn't feel trapped. I didn't feel small. I just felt free. I stepped past her. One step, then another. My hand reached for the doorknob. And as I twisted it, the noise behind me grew louder. But it no longer had power over me. The moment the door opened and the cool night air hit my face, I knew this wasn't just the end of a relationship. This was the beginning of something I thought I'd lost a long time ago. My own life, my own choices, my own truth. But as I stood on that doorstep, bag in hand, one question burned in the back of my mind. And it's a question I still don't have an answer for. Had I freed myself? Or had I just stepped into a different kind of prison, one where the memories of her lies would haunt me forever? I walked down the steps, each footfall echoing like a drumbeat in my chest. The night air felt sharp and alive, like the world itself was reminding me I still existed beyond her walls, beyond her chaos. But freedom didn't feel clean. It didn't feel like triumph. It felt heavy. My phone buzzed in my pocket over and over, her name lighting up the screen again and again. Text after text, pleading, threatening, promising, manipulating. I didn't even have to read them. I knew the pattern by heart. For the first time, I didn't answer. I slid the phone into airplane mode and shoved it deep into my bag. Silence. Real silence. And yet, even in that silence, her voice echoed in my head. The lies, the betrayal, the twisted justifications that I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring into the darkness of the road ahead. I had no destination, no plan, just a single, undeniable truth pulsing through me. I could never go back. But then came the weight of what I was leaving behind. The kids, they didn't lie to me. They didn't betray me. They didn't ask for any of this. My chest ached when I thought about their faces, the way they'd run to me after school, the way they'd call me dad, even though I wasn't their blood. Was I abandoning them too? Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I told myself over and over, this isn't your burden. This isn't your family. This isn't your responsibility anymore. And yet, deep inside, a part of me knew I would carry those children with me forever, like ghosts of the life I almost had. The life she poisoned with her lies. I turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, and with it, so did a strange, unsettling realization. I had escaped her, but I wasn't free of her. Not really, because betrayal doesn't just leave scars on your skin, it seeps into your soul, reshaping how you see love, trust, and even yourself. So here I am, driving into the night, unsure of where I'm headed, but certain of one thing. She took everything from me. My trust, my future, my sense of belonging. But what she didn't take, what she couldn't take, was my choice to walk away. And maybe, just maybe, that's the only piece of freedom I'll ever need. Thank you for watching this story on True Tales Hub. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next story. We post new tales twice a day, and each one comes with unexpected twists you won't see coming.